So there should be less than that or nothing at all. Any more than that, it means that your GI tract slowed down, and you just need to give it more time. So you wait an hour, and then you check again to see if the residual is gone. In most cases, it is. If you have an excess of 100 to 150 cc's residual, you do the same procedure. You stop everything, you give them an hour, you check again to see where everything is. And based on your second reading, we'll tell you if you need to call the physician, or do we have any, and then you look at the chart to see have they been evacuating their bowels or not, and do we have an issue with this person's digestive system. Bolus 250 to 400 milliliters, people go a whole lot. That's not a lot. That's a milk carton. That's a big, that's a milkshake. Optimal method of amount and time is general, well, the amount and time is directed by the physician on how much should go into the person, how many calories they need in order to maintain body function. It's given over 4 to 6 times a day if we give a bolus, and over 10 minutes. And if you're giving it 4 to 6 times a day, you're spacing it out to where you're giving it on a regular basis where the person's not going without for a long period of time, so they don't have to have a empty tummy. And they may not tolerate it, as we said before. Intermittent, 3 to 400. Continuous, as you see, in cyclic measure, is that we are giving a specified amount, whether it's 1,000 cc, 1,700, 500, over a period of 8 to 16 hours and sometimes longer. Excuse me, that's on continuous. Cyclic measure method is you're giving it for a period of 8 to 16 hours and you stop. And then you start it up again, then you stop and start it up again. The important thing with this, number one, this is not going to add extra water to a person. The person always has to get water with this. They have to get a bolus of water with their feedings or in between at some time during the day in order to maintain hydration. The tube feeding itself can only stay up for a specified period of time before it starts growing bacteria colonies. When we're giving medications, water is always added to the medicine before administering. You guys went through that in the skills lab. Exceptions. I think why you put that up there. For medication, for any enteral medications, or the exceptions. The exceptions are medications that cannot be crushed or cannot be broken. And those, if they cannot, for example, capsules or enterocoated tablets cannot be crushed, or time release cannot be crushed. Therefore, so those are exceptions you cannot crush and put into a feeding tube. Either the order has to be changed to a liquid, or there has to be another way to be able to give this medication. Complications, dehydration is not uncommon, and you kind of wonder why, because they're getting all this tube feeding and it's got water in it, but not enough. It's like you eating 3 meals a day but not having any water at all with the meal or in between. You're doing the same thing to yourself.
Excuse me, if you give it in the liquid form, do you still have to dilute it with the water?
You don't dilute it with water, you have to give water continually.
Just to, okay. The mixing it like how we do.
But you're adding water either before the feeding, after the feeding, or sometime during the day, you're giving them boluses of water.
Okay.
So that they maintain their hydration.
Okay.
And as you can see here, we have diarrhea, we have pseudo dumping syndrome, which is an intolerance. that can causes more constipation and diarrhea. But you know that they're having an issue with the enteral feeding is when they have diarrhea and it's the same color coming out as it was coming in. They're not tolerating.
When your aspiration, you have two different numbers, which one would you like to throw in?
I'd say number 45 degrees.
So that one said 30.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, this is our new slide that we're saying.
45.
Checking.
I can say that 3 times. Remember 45.
45 for everything.
45 degrees. Like I said, it says 30 to 45, but remember 45. That's the optimum. Enzymes such as lipase, amylase, and protease are given to the, along with the tube feeding or given separate as medication in order to promote digestion. The foods that we eat causes the body to dump certain enzymes within the body to help to promote with digestion. But given this kind of feeding, sometimes the body does not respond, and therefore additional enzymes need to be added. Enteral nutrition to calculate for dilution of enteral medication is as listed. All we're doing here, I have another slide I think, is that we're trying to maintain a constant osmolality. So we're not giving too much fluid, we're giving enough, but we're giving enough fluid with the medication that's going to match the amount of tube feeding that they're getting. And there it is. You guys had this on the slide, right?
No.
You don't? Okay, another one added. The slide will be up on Blackboard.
You're going to update the ones that you have?
Absolutely. I'll just switch this over with the other one. The bottom part there says osmolality of amoxicillin is, and then we break that down into the formula, and it says the answer is 22.5. Remember that number. The physician believes that when they order tube feeding, they'll sit down and they'll figure out how to give this person as much fluid with medication or along with the enteral feeding, you can give 250 here, 300 here, 200. They've already figured that out. It's been rare, but I've had to use this for doctors. Okay, go ahead and get feeding.
That's the answer.
Oh, yeah.
You said remember that.
Thank you very much.
So it's 2250.
Most of the
Is the osmolality, right?
And if you don't have these on the slides, I'll have these on the blackboard within minutes after leaving class. We talked about this already in one of the earlier slides. I've just broken it down into a wider fashion so you can see it. Again, we're calculating osmolality because we want to measure the body fluid to maintain that homeostasis between inter and extracellular fluid, or in one case, the interstitial. TPN, total parenteral nutrition. When is that given? When they don't eat. This is replacement for eating. Because they can't, unconscious, they've had a severe stroke, whatever. This is a fairly long term, but I hate to use that terminology because this is generally months that it's used rather than years and so forth. They generally go from this into tube feedings and so forth. But this is kind of that stopgap in between IVs and then different kinds
This
of
one, my
feeding.
niece on.
Nutrients within it are, as you see, so it replaces all the stuff that you would normally get if you're eating a regular meal. It just is brown.
Yeah, yeah, light brown color.
There's the- The major complication of TPN is ear embolus. That is number one. Whenever there is a break in the catheter, there is always a chance of an air embolus because of the pressure or negative pressure that is found on the inside versus the outside. Other ones that we can see are hemothorax and so forth. So the catheter being displaced. These are given by a central line. Or nowadays they can be given by a PICC line.
That's what she got.
I think it's a neat contraption, a lot easier than trying to find that. Like clay veins with the issues are TPN, the person quite often suffers from hyperglycemia. Although on occasion you can have hypo, but primarily hyper. Infection is also a worry with this because of the amount of sugar that is in the stuff. Is that we have an infection, you get bacteria, now we're feeding it. Okay? If we have a hyperglycemic issue. And then finally, fluid overload. We're just giving too much fluid to that person in general. And the body can't handle it.
I'm sorry.
Prevents.
Okay, I'll find
The only thing I want to mention before I go back to the next slide, that we have IVs called PPN, partial parental nutrition. It's very similar to TPN. It's only used for a very short period, over a few days, until there's either transfer over to TPN or to a person eating again. But if there's going to be a lapse of no eating, we want to make sure that they're still getting the nutrients in. Almost the same components. Questions? Questions? You are free except for my clinical group. I want to see you.
For just tomorrow.